If you're tired of the standard business and marketing fundamentals, frameworks, and funnels, you need a little mischief. Get ready to turn up the volume on the CEO Mischief Maker podcast, where you access conversations with seasoned business owners who have smashed through mindset barriers, innovated the standard boring business and marketing playbooks, and executed future-paced strategies with bleeding-edge tools and tactics to micro-fail their way into massive success and growth. We are Mindset Impact Strategic Catalysts helping innovative entrepreneurs focus. We are CEO Mischief Makers. Ready to make a little mischief? All right, CEO Mischief Makers, welcome to the conversation. It must be Monday, it must be Mindset, and I must be talking to an incredible gentleman I just recently met and just absolutely fell in love with. All right, you gotta welcome to the conversation, Jamarr Johnson, Trey J, as we are gonna call him. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful this morning. So happy to be here this Monday.
Oh my gosh, we are going to have a blast. I already know it because basically Trey J and I just met like not even a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago over texting via Facebook, and we had a call and it just exploded. We are on the same page. I mean, it's so exciting to be in this world of online business, online marketing, technology, automation, and find so many incredible like minds. So speaking of minds, tell us, just for the people who may not know you, what do you do?
Thanks for having me first and foremost. What do? I solve problems creatively with my digital marketing agency called UpMind Media. I've been running it for about 8 years now. Originally, I'm from New York City, former naval officer, Marine of 14 years. And when I was 25 years old, my best friend sent me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I feel like it opened up my third eye for entrepreneurship. But at that point, my mind was continually scanning for opportunities and ways to grow and educate myself and learn. And so what I do is I take education, I transmutate it through my body, through my experiences. I find creative ways to explain problems that people are going through in the realm of digital marketing. And I show them solutions and possible ways that I can guide them to their objectives when it comes to online marketing and a process I call super connecting.
All right. Mischief Makers, out of that, maybe 15-second conversation or 15-second little explanation there. There were so many things that we have to unpack. Think about stories. I just have to say this. When we say things casually, naval officer, New York, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, those are key things that have impacted your life, but there are so many things behind each of those statements that lead to who you are. And I know when we get into impact and innovation, you're going to have a lot to say because that's what you've done is basically innovated the standard scripts that we've gotten or the standard blueprints. But let's start with mindset. I mean, tell me, what mindset did you have to not just join, but perform and excel in the Navy? First off.
Well, I come from a long line of heroes. My father was a Marine. My uncle was a Marine. My brother's actually a New York City police officer of 18 years. But the mindset that I had to have when I joined the military was that for me, I realized that I was potentially risking my life, but I was doing it because there was a worthy goal that I was trying to obtain. And that was my education. Didn't have a lot of money for college growing up. So for me, I was looking at the cost benefit analysis of going through life without an education versus with an education. And so for me, I was like, you know what? I come from a long line of heroes. Every one of my family members has made it through and out of the military. So why not risk something to get something? And so at an early age, for me, I started working at 12 years old. I didn't want to be a burden to my mother. And so I always had the mindset of you get what you put in. And so I knew that I wanted money for college and I didn't want to go to city college. I had higher aspirations for myself, but I knew going to a higher level of college was going to require more resources. And so I just looked and did the research and figured out, you know what, I can make something of myself if I do this.
Wow. And then, so obviously in your family, so it was a familiar path, but you looked at it a little bit differently.
Mhm.
And I love how you say they made it through, they made it out. So,
Yes,
I mean, I can only imagine going into work every day thinking anything could happen today that might put my life at risk.
sure.
I mean, that's even if we're not at war, even if we're not in any particular conflict, there are situations behind the scenes that we mortal human citizens don't know about that you probably experienced. Now take that once you got out of the military, and you said, what was that transition between getting out of the military and getting that first book of Rich Dad Poor Dad?
So actually, I got the book Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was 25. I was I was in the
Still.
military. I had switched
Mhm.
from Marine Corps to naval officer. So luckily, I did a bunch of research and I realized that the Marine Corps was a subset of the Navy. And so when I was in college, most of the mentors at college were naval officers, not Marines officers. So I got to really experience them and really come to realize that I would probably have a longer career if I went to the Navy because they were more like-minded people to me.
Yeah.
And so when I was 25, that was my first full year in the Navy as an officer, and I was stationed out in Yokosuka, Japan. My best friend Sean Wilkerson, who just retired actually last September in 2021 after 24 years in the Navy, he was kind enough to send me Rich Dad Poor Dad unannounced in the mail because it had impacted him so much. And so in reading that book, I was transitioning out of the military at the age of 25, although I didn't actually get out until 32. I was already preparing. And let me take it back for a second, because when you talk about mindset, what made the military somewhat easy for me was that my mother was very regimented and instilled discipline into me at an early age. Now, when I was a young teenager, I was struggling, I was rebelling, I was angry at the world. Woe is me, why is me? But at 15, I had an experience that shifted my mindset and my perspective greatly. That experience was, I spent a night in jail for something that I didn't do, but it was because of who I was associating with. I had a friend who got into a fight with a homeless man, right? So three of us spent the night in jail, and in where I'm from, it was kind of like you don't tell, right? They call it snitching. You don't snitch on your friends, right? So we spent the night in jail because we didn't want to tell, right? But then I realized if I had great aspirations for my life, I would have to change the people, the places, and the things that I did with my time in order to make that possible. And so after a 30-day full, I call it house arrest that my mother imposed on me, where I became the family butler. I was like, at the end of 30 days, I was like, Mother, would you like some more tea? Right? I became a changed man. What happened for me was I said, I've got to start changing the things that I do if I want to change my outcomes. And at that point forward, I got locked and loaded in school. I went from being left back twice, mostly because I was avoiding violent situations. If you didn't belong to a gang, you were basically under attack every day in Harlem, where I'm from. So I went from being left back twice to being skipped once, and then I graduated valedictorian of high school. All of that was only through discipline and focus on the objectives and tasks at hand. So I had already overcome so much that by the time I got to the Marine Corps boot camp, that was a cakewalk. And then being a naval officer, it was so easy for me to be sharp and to stand out amongst the rest because I had already, since the age of 15. So we're talking about 15 to 25, a decade of being consistent, being disciplined, being a top athlete. I was the captain of my basketball team, and my teammates voted me MVP my senior year. So I had all of that belief in myself that I could do whatever I put my mind to by the time I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so then from there, it was almost like a rainbow of possibility bursted through my mindset when I realized that there's just so much out there that I don't know. And now I realize that the more that I know, the more I will never know.
I
But
know.
that keeps me hungry every day for new information, new knowledge, and new wisdom to learn.
Isn't that amazing? All right. So you're talking at the age of 15
Yes.
was when all of this happened. And I,
Mhm.
I gotta ask you, because I ask myself this all the time. And I don't know whether it has to do with mindset, if it has to do with genetics, if it has to do with circumstance. I have no idea. But how many kids that you grew up with may have experienced the exact same thing and did not have the results? Most of them did not have the results that you did. I'm the oldest of three girls. No one in my family has ever gone. My mother took a few classes
Mhm.
in college, but no one has ever gone to college. No one has ever graduated from college. No one has ever broken through the barriers that I was basically thought was life when I was
Mhm.
growing up. And why, I ask myself, why me? Not in a woe is me sense, but why did I do this? And every cousin and sibling and person in my family has not.
Mhm.
That's the question I ask myself. What do you think?
So you can imagine I get asked this question a lot. You know, I'm a keynote speaker when I go places. That's one of the first things people ask me. And it's because they want to try to impart that wisdom on other people to help other people in circumstances. And what I would say is, first of all, I know that it's a gift from God to have the self awareness of what your gifts are. And, you know, honestly, like my mother, she she really instilled in me that you have these talents, but if you don't use them, you will lose them. So even though she didn't go to college, you know, she dropped out of high school, got a GED, and started working pretty early on because she had me at 19. She knew that she had to push me to think about the problem more and be self-reflective. And so I would say that the type of communication that my mother had with me, based on her strength, she was a very sensitive, emotionally intelligent person naturally. She shared that with me. So I had a really good perception of my gifts, strengths, and weaknesses. I was doing kind of like SWOT analysis at a very early age, right? And so understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and the different ways that you can really take off. I would say that it's only through her guidance. And so even though my mother didn't go to college, she has a PhD in emotional intelligence. So that would be the main thing that I would say, because if you look at even most of the top CEOs, they're not all straight A students. Most of them are C and B students. But what they do have is the ability to lead and inspire people. And that's really emotional intelligence. So I would say it's not necessarily intellect, it's not knowledge. Some of it is hard work and the ability to push through difficult times without quitting.
Yeah.
And I have my fair share of, when I was younger, quitting things because I just didn't like how it made me feel. And I
Mhm.
had a lesson where my high school basketball coach, I quit my sophomore year after maybe 6 games, using the excuse that I had to make money and provide and you know, help the household out, right? But it was just an
Yeah.
excuse. I was
Yeah.
upset because I wasn't a starter. I was upset because I was coming off the bench as a sixth man and had a limited role. So my ego was driving me. The following year, I developed a huge love and dedication for the game of basketball over that summer. So when I told the coach that I was going to go try out again, he said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I don't know if I'm going to let you. You know, you can try out, but I don't know if I'm actually going to let you on the team because last year you quit on us and we really needed you." And that was a moment when I realized there are certain things that when you commit to it, you have to see it through. And so he actually wanted to talk to my mother, and we had to kind of come up with an agreement about expectations and things like that. And so from that point forward, I learned a valuable lesson about what things you can quit because it's a danger to you, and
Yeah.
what things you cannot quit because you committed to it. And so I learned to build that resolve to see things through. And I think a lot of people, they have ability, they have skill, they have desire, but they don't have the resolve to push through when things get a little difficult, when things get boring, for example. You've got to find a way to push through because you've made a commitment to yourself to finish something and complete it and see it to the end.
You know, I agree with you, and I'm so thankful. I know all of us who have been impacted by you just from this conversation
Oh,
and
thank
many more that I know we'll have in the future. We're so
you. Mhm.
thankful that your mother helped instill that in you. I really do feel that you still had to have a mindset. You still had to have
Yes.
something about you to be open to that and not rebel against it.
Sure.
And I really, so when I look at my family, it really is, there are certain obstacles. There are certain, like you mentioned, your ego, you didn't like it, all those things. There are certain things that are barriers to us that we don't really realize until either someone points it out to us or we have a lesson like that. And these are mindset barriers. These are, if I do this, they might find out I'm really not as good as I think, or that they think I am, that whole imposter thing, right? Or if I do this, I might let someone down, or I'm too afraid, maybe I can't. There are so many limitations we put on ourselves, even, and I really believe most of them are unconscious. These are not things that we consciously say in our minds. These are things, and we all know, I mean, well, I don't know if you know, but I've read a lot about this in the amygdala and all the piece of your brain that basically controls that, the monkey brain, all those things. Those are all part of it. But to be able to break through those things is a unique skill. Some of us have help doing it. For me, I had to get out of that environment completely and be on my own around people who thought I could do things so that I could. And then I had to take it from there, right? So for you, you had, thankfully, someone around you that could help you say, nope, you can do this. Nope, you need to do this. You're wasting your talents if you don't. And it's your choice. Do you think it's that has that mindset component, or how did that mindset component and breaking through some of those barriers impact these choices that you made?
Well, I think, when you do something difficult and you see it through and you get the result on the other side, that reward impacts your system. And so you start understanding that, everything that I have today that's meaningful to me only came through hard work, sacrifice, and discipline. So your mind shifts to start to, instead of looking to run away from difficult things, it says, no, there's going to be something rewarding here. Ultimately, I really give it up to faith, because I feel like the definition of entrepreneurship is having the faith that you will be paid handsomely for the services or products that you provide to someone, because it brings enough value to them that they appreciate it. And if you think about it, the only difference between someone who clocks in at a 9 to 5 and an entrepreneur is that the 9 to 5er is having trust in a person that they work for, that person will honor the agreement between them. And entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur does something for someone and they have to have that same trust, except the difference is an entrepreneur doesn't just have one stream coming from one client. Typically, they have multiple streams coming from multiple clients. So they're constantly seeding opportunities based on faith and in hopes that they will be paid when they've completed their services. So the difference is faith in one versus faith in many. To me, the entrepreneurship route just seems way more logical, because yes, people will let you down. Employers let employees down all the time. And yes, some of your customers might let you down. But if I'm an entrepreneur, I have the ability to seed hundreds, if not thousands, of potential customers. And thus I'm creating a stool with many more legs to stand on than simply one. And so for me, having the faith that is the better route. And honestly, if you think about it too, entrepreneurs actually employ 80% of all of the employees in America. So to me, that's just a route. And obviously Rich Dad Poor Dad helped me understand that route provided way more value than simply going to work for someone. But also too, it's very hard to get rich working for someone. Some people do it, small percentage. And I realized that I wanted to give myself the best opportunity to create wealth and abundance so that I can impact the things that matter to me, and not just sit back and say, well, why isn't someone doing something about it? Like, no, I can just decide. I can go make an impact whenever I want, because I have the resources, and more importantly, I have the time.
And you have the mindset. I mean, what you just described to me is exactly the definition of the abundance mindset. There is abundance around us, and we need to seed those relationships that will spread abundance in the world.
Yes.
That's what you just talked about.
Yes.
And that I think is the key difference between corporate and a job and
Mhm.
entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
Because I know many, and I'm sure you know many entrepreneurs who basically just bring the corporate mentality and just create a job for themselves.
Mhm.
Right? That's not what I think of as entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is this abundance, is this relationship, is this super connector that you are so incredibly gifted at.
Thank you.
And not just gifted, you work at,
Yes,
obviously.
work at,
Um,
and also you're trying to create leverage points, right? An entrepreneur is looking for leverage points to make big things happen. Whereas oftentimes, sometimes you have people that are entrepreneurs within an organization, but most people are kind of like order takers, and they just want to do their job and then go home. And they're not, and for good reason, because they don't have equity oftentimes, and so there's no real incentive for them. But
right.
an entrepreneur knows that, hey, this thing either rises or falls off my efforts. And so I can go about it where I'm just constantly hustling, or I can take a step above hustling, and I can create systems and processes and leverage points that allow me to not just have a job for myself, but allow things to operate even when I'm not there, so that I can generate income. And to me, that's what a business is, right? When Robert Kiyosaki talked about the cash flow quadrant, employee, self-employed, and then business owner. Business owner means that operations are happening even if you're not present. And that's what entrepreneurship is. Self-employment, doctors, surgeons, attorneys, they make a ton of money, but only when they show up and are physically there. And so you kind of want to get out of that so you can have leverage and freedom.
Completely. I used to call myself the superhero solopreneur when I was
Mhm.
all on my own and just doing every single thing possible to do everything in my business. That was my
Mhm.
superhero solopreneur. And I wore that like a badge, really.
Yep.
And I've definitely discarded that badge since. I said, nope,
It's
it
so
ain't for me
smart.
no
Yeah.
more.
Yes.
So, okay, just to kind of round off, because you and I could talk about this subject, I know,
Yes.
for a
Yes.
long time. But let's round it off with what is the next mindset hurdle that you are currently wrestling with?
For me, the next mindset hurdle is really just looking at how to create, 10xing the results I'm already getting, right? And that, like you said, is a function of letting go. It's a function of scaling, recruiting, trying to find good talent, trying to find good systems and processes to implement. For me, that's it. And the thing is, like, I have a lot of friends in the business world that are multiple seven-figure success stories, but as solopreneurs, because they use automation, because they use systems and tools of process. So I've got blueprints right in front of me. But for me, what I realize is that I really want to pour into people, as an entrepreneur. So having people around, having proteges. So for me, it's like, okay, I've done a lot on my own, but I want to pass this knowledge on. I want to pass it down, and I want to create that, almost like that camaraderie,
Yeah.
and almost create that team. And everybody's going to have their own ultimate objectives, and that's fine. I'm not looking for employees. I'm looking for
Mhm.
partnerships that I can
Yes.
build with, both locally and afar. Because
Mhm.
with technology, we don't have to all be underneath each other.
No.
But I
Yeah.
love live events. I mean, obviously, I'm a keynote speaker. I love going to speak to people, but I want to start to really pour into people and cultivate that ability to create leverage through partnerships. And so that's the next mindset hurdle: is how do you inspire and motivate people who maybe haven't learned how to turn on that flame? And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, like how was I able to shift the mindset? And if you think about it, my mother was there, but she was constantly pouring into me by speaking to me, by seeing my little success and my little wins, and by magnifying them. And if I can do that for other people, I know that I could help them dream bigger, think bigger. And then as a team, right, we will achieve way more than we would as our individual parts. So creating synergy, almost like creating a network of other solopreneurs that are leveraging systems and processes and tools. I'm going around with this. I call myself a shovelpreneur from time to time, because I say, the first millionaires that came into California when the gold rush happened were the ones who sold the tools. So
I'm sorry. We just are so,
yeah,
you just use synergy. We are so
yeah,
aligned.
I know.
I've got a course called Chat NFTs, and it's basically
Mm,
helping chat entrepreneurs, chatbot
mhm,
builders use those same skills in this new world of Web3 and NFTs to
mm,
help build communities. And that's exactly what I say. You don't have to go out and mint your own NFTs and go buy a bunch of crypto. You own the shovels and the picks. You own the stuff that helps build community. We
mhm.
do that with automation. We help
Yep.
understand people. We help ask questions. We have conversations with people through our automations. And that is exactly what you just, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah. I know.
I'm telling you,
No,
too
I
many
know.
similarities, dude. Oh, I just, I have to say that, that all of the processes that you've talked about, all of the wanting to give, I really do believe giving is so much more rewarding than receiving. It really is. When you give to someone, and as a parent, I know this, but even before I was a parent, babysitting and all of that kind of brought me to this. But when I first started my first business in 2003, that's the first thing I said was, I don't want to hire employees. I want to hire other entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
because we need help. We need others to believe in us. We need others to see what we're trying to do in the world and help us and create partnerships with us. So I'm so grateful, and I know everyone else who will come into your world and into your business as a partner will be completely grateful for that outlook on
Yeah.
growing a business. Giving is so much more rewarding than receiving. So wow, I hate to end this and go on to the next thing, and see you on Wednesday again with impact and innovation, but we got to. So otherwise we'll talk forever.
I know.
Wow. Any last words on mindset before we go, so that, because I know there are people in the audience thinking about this and taking little pieces and trying to incorporate them into their own lives. We've all heard of imposter, we've all heard of fear, we've all heard of those things, but we haven't walked your walk. Um, any other last ideas about
Sure.
mindset that you'd like to share?
Sure. So a mindset, you mentioned giving, a mindset um, tool that I use is something I call OD4R. And so if you use hashtag OD4R, OD, over deliver in value when you receive in price always. And if you do that, there are 4 byproducts. I call them the 4 R's. The first R is that you get to remain your authentic self. When you over deliver, people don't mind your idiosyncrasies, the way you might dress. People accept you as you are because they can see the brilliance that lives within you. The second R is that you have real impact, right? Not fake impact, not faux impact. You want to have real impact in your clients' lives, in your friends' lives, in your community's lives. So you got remain your authentic self, real impact. The third R is you create raging fans by doing that. People will say, "Oh my God, you gotta meet this person. You've got to see this person speak. You got to listen to their podcast." You create raging fans. And the fourth R, that is one of the most important R's, and it took me like really 3 years to solidify this formula in my own cells, is be ready to receive the abundance that will flow your way. And the abundance is not simply just monetary or materially. You mentioned it. The reason why it's better to give than to receive is that you actually give yourself an energetic shift. That abundance is possible when you over deliver and give from truly a place of no expectations other than to over deliver. So that receive on the other end is more energy, more ideas that the universe will just download into you when the timing's right, more connections, more possibilities, and more hope that nothing in this world ever happens to you. It happens through you so that you can share your testimony and impact other people's lives and make a difference in the world.
Okay, hold on. If your mindset was shifted, you were inspired to innovate, and you were spurred into action, don't just move on with your day. Focus, my friend, and take a few minutes to visit ceomischiefmaker.com to learn more about the value that was shared with you today. Please act now and create some CEO mischief of your own.